Can being a salesperson in a past role make you a better marketer? Let's talk about it in this episode of Closing Time. Thanks for tuning into Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. I'm Val Riley, head of content and digital marketing at Insightly CRM. Today, I'm joined by Kyle Coleman. He is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Clari, and Clari is a revenue platform that improves visibility of team performance. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Hey, Val. It is great to be here.
All right, so there's a debate in my mind whether you came from the dark side or you moved to the dark side, but you did shift from sales to marketing. Can you talk about how that went in your career?
Yeah, it's an open question, and you'll get a different response based on who you're talking to. Are you talking to a salesperson? Are you talking to a marketing person? I'm a little bit of both. I grew up through sales development. I was the sixth employee at a company called Looker, business intelligence company based in California, and I was the first SDR. I grew that SDR team to about 70 people over the course of 6 years. But for the first 4 years, I reported directly to the CMO. And for the final 2 years at the company, I reported directly to the CRO. So I developed this, I think, pretty interesting fluency of language for both what matters to marketing people. How do they think about their work? What are their success criteria? How can I help them in this SDR role? And then very similarly with salespeople, what do they talk about? What do they care about? And how can the SDR role influence them? And so I got this really interesting balance of the whole go-to-market team. And honestly, each function can't exist without each other. And so it shouldn't be this butting of heads. It really needs to be a unified go-to-market team. And it doesn't really, I don't think about myself as being on one side or the other. I think about being on Clari's side, which is, this unified team of go-to-market experts that are all working in service of the same goal, which is to generate enough revenue to hopefully at some point become a profitable company and a company that can IPO. And that's the journey that we're on together.
So, as a marketer, and I've always sat on the marketing side, which, maybe I should have switched teams in the past, but like one thing that I do that I'm so intrigued by is actually listening to sales calls. So
Yeah.
we have a platform that lets us as marketers or anybody really listen to recordings and kind of hear what the conversation is between this prospect, right, that we have teed up as a marketing team and we have gotten them through all these stages and they're finally on that call. And that's such a powerful tool, right? That's just one tactic though. What other tactics do you think of that marketers can do to really better understand what is going on the sales team?
It's a great point, Val. And listening to those recorded calls is such a powerful weapon for marketing teams that most people just don't take the time to do, which is a real shame. A lot of marketers will do a lot of persona research, and they'll read articles on whatever website, blog post, whatever. But they don't actually listen or spend enough time speaking with the actual personas that you're selling to. And that's what these call recordings can allow you to do. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Clari's platform has the capability of call recording, but we'll paper over that real quick. The power of this is you get to hear directly from the persona's mouth. You get to hear what are their main challenges, what are their main pain points, how are they responding to the value props that the marketing team creates and the salespeople pitch. And the rapid iteration that you can make as a result of this is incredible. So there's no shortcuts here. You have to take the time to actually listen to the calls, engage with the field, talk to the sales reps, be willing to take some negative, or let's say constructive feedback about the types of things that are working and what aren't. And especially in this environment, Val, that's changing so rapidly, you've got to be able to pivot. If you don't pivot, if you as a marketer get married to the messaging, positioning, whatever it is that you created a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, that is a death sentence, especially now. And so there's no better way to keep or to iterate quickly and effectively than to keep an ear to the ground and work closely with the field, listen to those recorded calls, spend time with customers. If you could do those things, you're going to be much better off. You're going to use language that actually resonates. You're going to get out of your marketing ivory tower and down to the street level so that you can actually create messaging that has real resonance, and you're going to be a much better marketer as a result.
So that sales call is kind of like the bottom of the funnel, but I was recently at a trade show where I was shoulder to shoulder with some sales folks, and like we're at the top of the funnel, but it's the same experience. You're still hearing those conversations, like you're saying, you're out in the field talking to real live people and kind of seeing as a marketer, hey, are the messages that I'm saying or the phrases that I'm putting out there, are they really resonating?
Right.
So like I would think that would be another great tactic too.
100%. The more time you can spend with your sellers, the more time you can spend with your customers, the better off you're going to be.
Mhm. You know, I one thing that you had mentioned about helping sales and marketing teams align, which we're very aligned today because we're like almost wearing the same color, but is moving away from like jargon
Yeah.
and in marketing communications,
Yeah.
keeping our messages shorter. I mean, you had a bunch of tips in that regard that you feel that sales folks see, you know, marketing folks maybe making these mistakes over and over again. Can you talk me through those?
The jargon thing, Val, is so brutal, and like, there's nothing sure to um, lose interest than using meaningless words. How many times have you seen the phrase 360-degree view, and you're like, what does that mean? What could that possibly mean? And yet, because it sounds fancy, basically you'll see it on 9 out of 10 SaaS B2B websites, and it's phrases like that. It's like, what are we actually trying to say here? We're trying to say you get a full view of something. Why not just say that? Keep it simple. And there are a million other examples of how that marketing jargon can get kind of infiltrate a lot of really strong value props and actually cheapen them by trying to sound different, by trying to sound fancy. You end up actually sounding the same as everybody else out there, and you lose meaning by changing the meaning in many respects of what you're actually trying to say. So marketers, and this is part of what I love about having grown up through sales development and growing up through outbound marketing, is you cannot afford as an outbound seller to use any of that jargon. You need to speak simply, clearly, and effectively. And pulling all that jargon out is the only way that I've seen successful cold prospecting actually work. And the same is true with marketing. The easier it is to understand, the more effective it's going to be. You do not get points for using fancy words, for using longer words, for writing longer sentences. That's not the way that this works. Crisp, simple sentences is what you want to do. And if you can, and this is hard, this is the hardest thing about marketing, if you can find the intersection between simplicity and differentiation, when that the overlap of that Venn diagram is the key to the castle. Simplicity and differentiation. If you can really nail that, you're going to be in much better shape than 99% of marketers out there.
I do. I feel like sometimes I'm the hatchet woman when it comes to writing. Like on all the teams I've worked on, I just want to come back and say, no one cares. This is too long. Take out some words.
Yeah.
And you know, and marketers, you know, they tend to approach things, you know, like they're writing and it's very personal to them, and just teaching them this, the messages that you're trying to communicate, you know, just have to be shorter, fewer words, more straightforward, less complexity.
Yeah.
Once they start getting that skill, I know it's one that's going to serve them like super long into their career, but it can hurt a little bit at the beginning.
It sure can. And there, a lot of folks will say, well, you know, if it's a simple sentence, anybody could write it. And that's not true. Simple stuff is harder to write. It is harder to write a sentence that's 10 words than an essay that's 100 if you're trying to make one crisp point about your product. And so paring it down and being really critical about the exact verbiage that you're using while you maintain that simplicity and differentiation, that's a really hard task. I highly recommend for marketers out there, if you haven't been a student of David Ogilvy, go read everything the man has ever written. He had a couple books out there. Ogilvy on Advertising is incredible. And you'll see not just his principles, but you'll see his actual, there's a lot of examples of the copy that he or his agency has written over the years. And it's revelatory in how simple it is. You don't see any fanciness. You don't see any jargon. And yeah, this was happening 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. But human nature hasn't changed that much. Like people want to be able to easily understand something and make a quick decision. And the harder you make it for them to understand something, the easier you're making it for them to forget about you. So you have to be really careful about that. So it's a great point, Val. And please go. Ogilvy will talk about it better than I ever can. He's a personal hero of mine. So go check his stuff out.
Great. Let's shift gears just a little bit because one thing that, we often associate sales with a lot of processes and documentation. And in marketing, we tend to think, oh, we're more artistic. We need to remove these boundaries because we have to be creative. But one thing you brought from your sales background into your marketing role was processes and documentation. So it sounds like it might be counterintuitive, but you say it's not.
It's so important, and again, for any lessons learned by scaling an SDR team up from myself to about 70 people is that you, the leader of your team, are infinitely unscalable, and you can't expect the knowledge that you have in your brain to make its way into the brain of the second team member you hire, let alone the 10th team member that you hire. And so you have to at some point swallow the pill and get what's in your head down on paper. What is the most optimal way of doing something, of doing all of the things? And it doesn't have to be, this 1,000-word dossier on how to write a blog post. You just need to, the way that I have found success is thinking about things through the lens of checklists. What are all the key things that need to happen here and in what order? And if I can just write a 8-point checklist about how to produce a blog post, and who the right people are that create the first draft and do the editing, do the design, do the publishing, CMS, whatever it is, then you're going to be in much better shape than if you just try and wing it every single time. Or if you try and just allow somebody else to go through a different process. What ends up happening as the team scales is you end up frustrating one another. If people don't know what's coming down the pike, if people don't know what's going to be asked of them when, they're going to get frustrated and things will surprise them and it's going to disrupt their own workflows. And so creating process creates predictability. And if you have predictability, your team is going to have a lot more unity and there's going to be more harmony there as well. And then the benefit of this from a marketing standpoint is it's a lot easier to know for the rest of the organization what is coming off the truck. What are the things that the marketing team is going to produce and when? And you can have a lot. It's just like a product roadmap. If your product team doesn't have a process, you can kiss that roadmap goodbye. It's meaningless. And so the same is true for a marketing roadmap, quote unquote. And you need to be able to commit to what are the things that we're going to make happen, campaigns, events, marquee pieces of content, whatever it is, share that with the field and then deliver on those things. You cannot do that without a process. So start small and create these checklist processes for all of the different projects and types of projects that you have. You're going to be in much better shape.
A checklist just feels so friendly and approachable, so I can't imagine getting pushback from that. But just to be clear, you're not talking about squelching creativity, right? In some senses, if you have those processes, and you keep everything orderly, you almost free up people's minds for even more creativity. Like that whole brain. We want the left brain, we want the right brain, we want the whole brain in marketing.
That's really well said, Val. There's a quote from Jocko Willink. He wrote Extreme Ownership. And one of the titles of the chapters of that book is Discipline Equals Freedom. And you think about that and you're like, wait, what? Discipline equals freedom. But it really is true. If people don't have to think about the basic stuff about how things are going to get done, you can remove all that anxiety from their brains so that they're unlocked to be creative within the process. So there are guardrails, but within those guardrails, there's plenty of room for autonomy. There's plenty of room for freedom, plenty of room for creativity. And so that's the structure that you want to create. We know the hallmarks of what good looks like, and we know the milestones that need to happen to get this thing across the line. But we also know that marketing is a creative skill, writing is a creative skill, design, branding, all these things require right brain thinkers. And so you have to be able to find the right balance, find the right combination of both. And if you can do that, you're again going to have that predictability for what's coming off the truck, and you're going to have really interesting and impactful actual marketing materials.
So twice in my career, I have joined a team where there wasn't a project management tool. Joined a marketing team where there wasn't a project management tool in place, and like almost had like a little panic attack and was able to successfully introduce those tools, twice. And I was coming in at in a leadership role. So, what advice do you have for a marketing leader to kind of coach up their teams with the structure and processes in mind?
It's a great question, Val. The advice I would have is like this has got to be tops down. You have to embody the same mindset. If you're expecting structure, if you're expecting process, you've got to live it. You've got to be the one in the project management tool, whether it's Asana or Monday.com or Google Sheets or just a checklist or whatever. You got to be in there reviewing the things, eating your own dog food, as the saying goes, and it's showing people that you're as committed to these processes and improving these processes as they are. And I'm guilty of this as well. It's so easy, Val, to lose sight of this. How is the scarf woven? It's easy to lose sight of that when you as a leader are doing a million other things and probably operating at a different altitude, maybe a longer term, more strategic level. But you have to make time to actually go in and show the team that you're leading by example and that this kind of process actually matters, and celebrate the things when they go well and expose the things when they don't go well and commit to fixing things. And if you can do that and show your team that you're really in it, that's going to go a super long way. And there's no replacing it. If your team sees that you're not in it, no one else is going to care about the project management system that you're trying to enforce. So you got to be there. You got to show up.
That's true. Lead by example. It's not new advice, but it definitely rings true. Kyle, thanks so much for joining us today. I'd like to think you're on the light side and you left the dark side, but we'll leave that for another discussion another day.
It's been a pleasure, Val. Thanks so much.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in today. Remember, you want to subscribe to this channel, like this video, hit the button for notifications so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you next week on Closing Time.